Now, ladies and gentlemen, we know that education outcomes are affected not only by education policies or education programs. And in fact, our panelists are also working on other sectors besides education. So, for example, ActionAid is also active in, I believe, health. And CARE is active also in water and sanitation. The supply of safe drinking water. So I'm going to ask our panelists also whether the same kinds of things that they've found for education, the same kind of take-up of communities and the importance of some buy-in from communities has actually worked for those sectors. Let me start with you, Irene.
Yes, I think at the end of the day, what we're looking at here really is development. And, borrowing lessons from other sectors, what we have learned over time is that one needs to have a very integrated approach and to recognize that achieving progress in education means one has to have a holistic way of looking at it and looking at a whole range of factors that impact on education. The environment within schools, the environment in homes, the situation in the country, the governance level, and so on. All of these have an impact on education. So in the other sectors that ActionAid works in issues of women's rights, of HIV/AIDS and issues to do with livelihoods and so on, we find that that is the case. The other lesson that we have learned that one could apply is the importance of having legal frameworks, or of having a clear framework and a standard that one can then work towards and against one which can measure progress and hold governments and other actors to account. So in countries like Brazil, again, I think there are examples of Brazil where legal frameworks have been established that require a minimum investment from the state in this sector. These are some of the things that can help to achieve progress in education. And maybe the last thing that I'd want to talk about lessons from other sectors is about the role of women. I think a key lesson for us, and this was mentioned in the panel earlier on today as well, is the importance of looking at the contribution that women can make to achieve targets in education. Mothers, for example, have a clear role in that. And then looking at education from a rights perspective, to recognize that there are clear gender disparities in most countries, and that any program that is trying to improve on quality of education and access to education must also look at the female school children.
Thank you very much. John?
Yes, we do work across a range of sectors, and I'll give a couple of examples from the economic development, the microfinance sector, where I think we've learned a lot. But like ActionAid, CARE believes also in looking at the underlying issues, the long-term needs to address problems. This is not, we can't fix these sorts of issues with very short-term things. You need to really dig down deep and understand the underlying causes of poverty, and then work with, which does require an integrated approach, and which does require working with a number of different partners in those sorts of programs. But in the microfinance area, just a couple of examples. One in Bangladesh, where we've had a large-scale program there working with economic development, where we saw the need for marginalized groups in the Bangladesh context to be able to find opportunities in rural sales programs, in selling goods in rural areas. And what we found interesting there is that, we can pilot that, we can learn from those pilots, which are often led and initiated by women's leaders themselves. But as they grow, you start to see interests of other partners. So, for example, now we're working with Danone, which is in the private sector, that is also interested, obviously, in outreach for its products in rural areas. And so, being able to pull together in a convergent way different partners in addressing some of these longer-term issues where there are convergent interests is a really important aspect of this.
Thank you. Senator, you are also a proponent of health programs. Can you tell us a little bit about how you come to that?
Yes, I've been working very much in health because I think that there is no problem in income inequality. That's not a problem. But there is a moral problem in inequality on education and inequality on health. We cannot afford to have inequality of the access to education and the access to health. Then we have been working a lot. And what I have been doing there as governor, as professor, as NGO person, is to promote the idea of health care at home, to finance small groups of professionals. Sometimes we have no doctor, but professional in a very small group, and they go to the home to see how it's working, the health of the family. This is a very, very cheap program that any NGO can do. Perhaps not for thousands of persons, but for some hundreds or dozens of people. But I want to talk about another program that I think is very interesting, a businessman. He alone created 101 libraries, public libraries. He brings money, he brings books directly, because book most people use to throw away, to give to others. And he built a small building in there, and he paid for some librarian. Listen, 100 libraries is a lot. Just one person, sure, he's a rich man. But it's possible to have this kind of cooperation. It's a public library, it's not a private library, but with private money.
Thank you very much. But I want to point to one aspect of the innovations of these individuals, but also of their organizations, which is really the power of bringing together family demands and family desires and goals, the community support for those goals, and also then government, and the fact that government can scale up and government can support. And sometimes I think we come from, in terms of improving education outcomes or improving, let's say, water, the supply of water, access to water and sanitation and all of these other social goals, we tend to think that it's mainly government that's going to fix this. What I think this panel is saying is, in fact, seeds of new ideas and also of better ways of doing some things can really come from organizations, individuals. Sometimes just as for example, our winner, the first winner of the Weiss Prize is an individual with an idea, willing to make a sacrifice, willing to sell his apartment in London to actually fund, BRAC for the first time. And I think that's one thing that we see here is using the power of individuals and organizations, not necessarily in government, realizing the importance of harnessing the desires of families and their goals, and the power of the community, and then the support of government after.